Have you ever wondered why the deadlift is called like that? Almost all of us who have been training consistently know what this exercise is about. But most of us doesn't know where we come from and how it became so popular and the wide benefits it has. So in this video, I'll be showing you everything from the history, its function, and last but not least, on how to perform the deadlift. Alright, let's just get right into it. Right, so the first thing is that the deadlift, it has a wide history. It's one of the oldest and most fundamental exercises in strength training, and it has been practiced for centuries. Its history can be traced back to ancient civilizations where it was used as a test of strength and power, Even though there's not enough evidence, it's here to say that this particular movement was actually very common among civilizations. Manual and hard working labor was a day-to-day task, of course, because we were not seated in our couches all day, right? And lifting heavy objects, especially in construction sites, was very common. That brings us to the main question at the start of this video, which is why it's called like that. Why the deadlift is called like that? Well, it's basically because it was the name, as it says, lifting someone from the floor. More significantly, something that is rather dead or, well, that's not alive. That's the main point, right? So now I'm gonna go to ancient Greece. In ancient times, lifting heavy objects was a common task for daily life. Again, we were not seated in our couches all day. And to demonstrate physical powerness, there were lots of records of weightlifting competitions in ancient ancient Greece, where athletes would lift heavy stones or other objects off the ground. While these lifts were not exactly the same as the modern deadlift, they involve similar movements and muscles, Even evidence from this is when, in the Greek island of Thera, archaeologists found a big boulder with the inscription of it reading, "Eumastas, the son of Critobulus, lifted me from the ground." Another similar one with Bybon, where there were also found a stone with the imprint, "Bybon, the son of Fola, has lifted me over his head with one hand." Wow. But like Almasta's tale, historians tend to believe this is a little more factual. Starting that Bybon most likely lifted that stone with two hands and held it overhand with one. Damn. For the Middle Ages, strength contests were very popular too among soldiers and knights to demonstrate their physical abilities and strength and power to prepare to battle against other fighters. So lifting heavy stones, barrels, and other objects was very common activity in these contests, of course, just like in Greece. Again, while these lifts were not exactly like the deadlift, the modern deadlift we see today, they involved similar movements and muscles like we tend to use them today, of course. And maybe, who knows, they use different types of barbells and dumbbells, I don't know, made of stone. Okay, so for the 19th century, strength sports began to become formalized and more competitions were developed. I'm sorry, I'm getting correct, but strongmen and circus performers will demonstrate their strength by lifting heavy objects, including barbells, dumbbells. Now we get into the good stuff. This first actual evidence of a feat of strength with a similar movement pattern was that of the British strongman Thomas Topham. As you can see in the photo right here, for this type of movement, Topham will stand on a platform and loop a harness around his upper back, neck, then lift an outstanding amount of weight below him. And some records say that he lifted well over 1,800 pounds. That's more than 1,000 pounds. Incredible, right? Hopefully he took his pre-workout beforehand, right? Another early adoption of the deadlift was the silver dollar lift. It's basically a device used between the 1800s and 1900s, created by George Barker Winship. And its mechanics was that people standing on an elevated box and grab a bar attached to a weight on a string. Now we're seeing some common things with the barbell and stand up with it, Last century, in early 20th century, we can already mention the pioneer of the deadlift, aka the father of the deadlift, in which is the German strength pioneer Hermann Gorner. I hope I say that correctly. He did everything like clean and jerk 300 pounds, wrestling an elephant, and most importantly, deadlifting 793 pounds. Yes, he did almost the same weight with one hand. 727 pounds. Jesus. And from the 1930s and 40s, another strength pioneer known as Mark Berry, who was a champion weightlifter in 1925, was a promoter of the squats. Was the first ever promoter of the squats. By this time, these two exercises were starting to get very popular in the United States, which now was part of the competitions amongst athletes. Incredible, right? So the deadlift was included as one of the literally the three lifts in powerlifting competitions. So the bench press already also existed too. And along with the squat and bench press, this helped to standardize the technique and rules for the deadlift and contributed to its popularity as a strength exercise. The deadlift has been a staple in powerlifting competitions ever since. What we see today, a lot of things, right? Thanks to social media. But today the deadlift is practiced by athletes and fitness enthusiasts all over the world, like myself. And it is considered one of the most popular and important exercises for building strength and muscle mass. And it's included in most strength training, of course, because you use almost all your body in deadlifts. Just incredible. So the deadlift has also been popularized by strongman competitions where athletes lift incredibly heavy weights, often over 1,000 pounds. I'm gonna tell you a good example of this. Honor to Andy Bolton, which in 2006 became the first man to hit the 1,000 pound mark. And that's not all. Then Benedict Mangusson has a record for the heaviest raw deadlift with 1,015 pounds. With an awesome name, right? Yes, Eddie, you too, but you could do it without straps. Throughout the history, it's the deadlift that has been used to test the strength and a way to build physical power. Its origins can be traced back to ancient times when lifting heavy objects was part of a daily life and a way to demonstrate that you have a lot of physical strength, you know. Back then again, we were not sitting in our couches all day, so we needed to do something better than that, like lifting heavy objects and being a man, being strong, right? The deadlift has evolved into the exercise we know today, and it continues to be one of the most important and popular strength exercises in strength training. Now, let's get to part 2. Functions and benefits. There's so many types of deadlifts, like the conventional, which we are talking about in this video, but there's also many variations like the trap bar deadlift, sumo deadlift, Romanian deadlift, stiff leg deadlift, rack pulls, and single leg deadlifts. For this reason, let's talk a little bit of anatomy, which I will use this awesome app called VB Sight, which is an anatomy app that you can see everything, like literally everything of the human anatomy, not just only muscles. And for the deadlift, the main muscles we target are the following. As most people know, the first one is the hamstrings. These are the muscles in the rear part of your thighs, which most of us don't train them enough and cause some discomfort in your knees and your hips if they're if they're undertrained and also overtrained too. The second muscle that works is the posterior chain, because of the main starting position of the conventional deadlift. It's part of the exercise to embrace your core and keep a neutral back position, and because we also use our arms, then the posterior chain will have a strength benefit from this exercise, of course, and if performed correctly can also have a positive impact. Number 3, glutes. Being the biggest muscle on your body, literally, training our glutes is important, as because one of the biggest functions is to hold your upper body while walking, and the deadlift helps us with a good posture and better glute strength, of course. And lastly, but certainly not least, of course, are the quadriceps, which even though they're not primordially targeted, still it is, and depending which type of deadlift, we can target them, like for example the sumo deadlifts. This helps with knee health and strength, of course. Now, other functions of this exercise is stabilizing your body, fixing imbalances in your body, and also making sure in your technique. So strengthening your lower back is also a good thing about the deadlift. Also to avoid any type of pain associated with your lifestyle, because we know that back pain is a very common problem amongst all of us. So now for the benefits, there's so many studies already mentioning the benefits of this exercise, and I'll focus on the best benefit for every body system. Number 3, I'm gonna go right into it. It's how to do the deadlifts, the most fun part. First of all, we need the equipment. We need a barbell or we need a dumbbell, depending on which type of of exercise we're gonna do, I'm gonna focus on the barbell conventional deadlift. So you will need a barbell and a weight plate, of course. Try to get the 45-pound, it's not that heavy, and start with an appropriate weight if that's too heavy for you, of course. If you're a beginner, you can start by just doing with the barbell alone without any weight, and you can gradually increase the weight, progressive overload with the movement if you're comfortable. So make sure the barbell is centered in the ground and the weights are evenly distributed on both sides. That's the most important thing before starting even the deadlift. Now, for the technique, most of us, take some time to do it, but the key phases of doing a good technique with the deadlift is that it can be broken down into 3 phases. Now, the setup, the lift, and the descent. When you're in the setup phase, you need to stand hip width apart. Your feet are hip width apart, toes pointed straight forward or ahead. Try to be as straight as possible. Bend at the hips and knees to lower your body down to the barbell. Now, the grip of the barbell with both hands, either using a double overhand grip, both hands facing you, or a mixed grip. You can do one pronated hand and one supinated hand. It all depends on your preference. In my case, I do it both hands pointing to myself. Now, keep your chest up, your back flat, and your eyes focused straight ahead. Try to keep a neutral spine. Like, I better say that in that form. And make sure your hips are between your shoulders and knees also, so you don't use more your lower back. That's also very important. So now when you go to the lift, before going up, make sure you have tension in the bar before pulling it up. Then push through your heels to lift the barbell off the ground. As the barbell passes your knees, fully extend your hips and knees to stand up straight. Do this, of course, while contracting your glutes and abs to use more of your overall body and not overuse your lower back and other muscles like the hamstrings or even the quads or even the calves. Also, make sure to keep the barbell close as possible to your body throughout the entire lift, so close as your chins. In the descent phase, reverse the movement by bending the hips and knees to lower the barbell back down to the ground. Now, try to do it very slowly if you are a beginner in this. Make sure to maintain a flat back and control movement throughout the descent, as I mentioned earlier, with the common mistakes. The first common mistake that most people do, I also do it myself, is sometimes when I'm starting to, is that you're not contracting your abs. You need to contract your abs. Okay. Have a neutral pelvic position and embrace your abs and glutes. That way you're gonna get that straight torso and spine position, which if you don't do this leads to overusing your lower back, and we don't want that, right? Also, avoid lifting with your lower back by rounding it instead. Do this technique mentioned earlier, as I just said. So also, don't hyperextend your lower back. When you go to the ascent, make sure your spine is straight. Just don't go back like this, okay? So think about pushing the floor away from you, and also thinking of pulling the bar to keep your upper body stable, okay? That's the best thing you can do. Don't bounce too hard the bar. Instead, make the descent and ascent slowly. And you can also pass at the bottom position if you want to. Like, nobody's telling you to do it continually. That's how to correctly do the deadlift. Well, this is all I've got about the deadlift, right? And personal opinion, I have been doing some sort of them, and I can say that since the day I started lifting weights and bodybuilding, there has been a variation of the deadlift in my routine. And so whether you enjoy this video, from the history to how to perform it in the correct way and also all its benefits, then you can also do your research about it. Never forget to tell me if you want more videos like this by dropping a comment down below, of course, and also a like if you enjoyed the video, if you got entertained, if you learned a lot of things. And again, the most important thing when it comes to training and the results is training hard. You need to train hard, okay? Just don't go to the gym and talk with people. You need to train hard consistently and make sure you have a good nutrition, of course, outside the gym, also very important. So work it, enjoy it, and master it. Again, guys, see y'all in the next video.